What's up, Warport family? It's your boy C-Dub here. Today, we're going to discuss, can Auburn still land a top QB in the 2025 recruiting class now that they appear to have pivoted from Juju Lewis? We will discuss that. Also, even some questions about media days this week. All that and more in today's edition of the Weekend Tailgate.
This is the Weekend Tailgate. Brought to you by Golden's Cast Iron. C-Dub. I Joe. Be Will. By G. You are now listening to
Happy Sunday, everyone, and welcome to the latest Weekend Tailgate. I am joined by Dylan Lark of the College Loop. So it's a War Rapport Network mashup here. We want to thank you guys for hanging out with us on a lovely Sunday. Hope you're having a great weekend. Please be sure to share this video. Smash that like button, and please subscribe if you are new to the channel. Ike's not here. Mike's not here. They're on their way to Dallas to cover SEC Media Days on behalf of the War Rapport Network. So you got me left here to read you some lovely ads. And I definitely want to start by shouting out the sponsor of today's show, GoldensCastIron.com. One of the ways that you can help the War Rapport is to show support and love to our sponsors. Head over to GoldensCastIron.com/WR, where you can get 15% off of weights using the code Get Your Weight Up, or $65 off of a fire pit or Kamado grill using code TWR. Great products, great company, a great sponsor to the War Report, helping us to bring you amazing content. Special shout out to Golden's Cast Iron. Also, if you want to become a member of the Green Name Game, you can hit that join button. And for $5.99 a month, you can become a patron and get access to a lot of perks. As we're getting close to the season, Ike has been doing a lot of film review. He's done some film review on DJ Durkin's defense. He's also done some film review on some of the guys that we picked up out of the portal. So you definitely want to catch that access to that content. $5.99 to get you there. Also, we'll be doing other cool stuff as we get closer to the season. Guys, we actually send a patron member to each game in the season. We do a drawing throughout the year, and we're sending people to a game courtesy of the War Rapport. So there are some amazing perks that you want to get access to. Also, you may already have a green name and you want to give the gift of a green name. Definitely want to do the membership giving there. You can also hit a button to do that. We appreciate you guys for participating in that. I have a reachable request. Mike's usually the one soliciting and asking this. Can we give 20 War Rapport memberships today? 20 War Rapport memberships today on behalf of Mike G and Ike, who are out on the highways and byways. This helps those guys do what they do, and we're going to bring you some amazing content this week while we're out in Dallas covering SEC Media Days. So definitely give the gift of a green name. We gladly appreciate it. I'll load it in a minute, but I definitely want to take time to shout out a show sponsor, a relatively new show sponsor that we have, known as JOYMODE. Let's call out the obvious. Everyone wants to head into the bedroom with confidence, feeling like the best version of themselves. But the problem is sometimes our thoughts get in the way of our performance, or maybe we feel like we're just not reaching our full potential. That's where the guys at JOYMODE comes in. No longer have to pick up sketchy gas station pills or prescribed drugs with a long list of side effects. JOYMODE Sexual Performance Booster is an all-natural and science-backed solution to increase blood flow, firmness, stamina, and performance. Also helps you with your cardiovascular as well. Good product, good folks. Go to usejoymode.com. I'll list that here. Go to usejoymode.com and use code rapport to get 20% off at your checkout. Special shouts out to them for also being a sponsor of the War Rapport. We back. Dylan, how are you, man? How have things been going?
I'm doing all right. College Loop's over 800 subscribers, so it's a nice little day in the neighborhood.
Do us a favor, if you're watching live or even on replay, head over to the College Loop and subscribe. Show my guy Dylan and then the fellas over there some love. They're doing great work throughout the year, so definitely show them some support as well. We're going to get into it, Dylan. Auburn recruiting. I think one of the reasons why this has been or felt like a very short off season, because it's almost like the season is basically here if media dates is here, right? I think one of the biggest reasons why this has felt like the shortest off season is because I think Auburn being very relevant in recruiting again with official visits, unofficial visits. Auburn is up to 16 commitments, even with 2 decommitments in recent weeks. There's been a lot of news surrounding Auburn recruiting, and that's due to the emphasis that this coaching staff has placed on recruiting, especially recruiting guys that they feel can help them compete with some of the best in college football. How are your thoughts just overall about how the recruiting has been going? We'll get into some questions about the QB position because that's the topic of the day. But what have been your thoughts about recruiting thus far, Dylan?
Yeah, I've really thought it's been an enjoyable offseason because now we're 48 days away from Auburn football officially being back. Kind of looking at just the class in general, I think Auburn has really touched on a lot of positions that need to be touched on. You're getting 2 tight ends, which one of them is going to be your receiving tight end, Hollis Davidson. You're getting a blocking tight end, Ryan Gee. The trenches have absolutely been a focal point of this recruiting class, but there is a lack of offensive skill positions, as in wide receivers and quarterbacks that we'll again talk about in a little bit. It has been a little slow over the past month or so. You haven't really gotten any big time Auburn commits in a while, and I think the fan base is eagerly waiting for Big Cat Weekend, which is I think in 13 days, 2 weeks right now.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's been a very solid class so far. I think Auburn fans have a lot to be excited for with this class.
Yeah, and I think if you put it into perspective, Dylan, a couple of years ago, previous coaching staff, Auburn just seemed like they were just behind, right? Auburn had maybe at this point, especially Harson's first year of Harson, Auburn may have had at this point, maybe 6 commits, 6 people committed. And because it's a numbers game in terms of having guys committed to your class, Auburn's class was ranked 40th, 50th as a result of that. Because
I think the highest Brian Harsin ever got Auburn was 23, and that's because he had that recruiting the right guys, not the best guys mantra. So again, coming from behind and playing catch up, it just wasn't much to. We were grasping for straws, looking for positives, right? And so for this coaching staff to be on top of recruiting, for Auburn to at one point been in the top 5 or have a top 5 class at one point, obviously we have a long way to early signing day. But for Auburn to be in the hunt for a lot of the big time recruits, and for Auburn to already have a top 15 class already, right outside the top 10, depending on what recruiting service that you're looking at, speaks to kind of how far we've come. And we are a week or 2 away from Big Cat Weekend. Personally, Dylan, I think I'm not worried about news being slow on the recruiting front because I remember what things was like a year ago, right? A year ago this time, Cam Coleman committed to Texas A&M and people were panicking. Yep.
And Big Cat came and confidence was restored. Hope was restored. And I think we're going to see a lot of that confidence being restored in terms of Auburn having a really good recruiting class. And I think the coaching staff is hanging on to that. We talked offline and you made mention of some guys, Anquan Fegans, he's yet to commit. You mentioned Blake Woodby, who people feel good about Auburn in that regard, right? So there's a lot of positives remaining. There's a lot of guys who Auburn is in the hunt for still to come to Auburn. And again, Big Cat has just been, again, this coaching staff has made Big Cat, right? It kind of lost like its luster over the past few years. And it was a big deal last year. And I expect it to be a big deal this year. And I think it gives this coaching staff momentum going into the fall season. So,
and it is worth mentioning as well, Big Cat was also when Perry Thompson announced that he was flipping from Alabama. And
absolutely.
If Auburn had, I don't think it was Auburn's fault, but KJ Bolden has all said he was like just that close away.
Almost.
Almost
but again,
committing.
The momentum had shifted in favor of Auburn, right? And I think even that week, Auburn had flipped some commitments. And I mean, Auburn was beginning to pick up momentum that week going into that weekend. So I think a lot of the momentum will pick up around Big Cat. I think if you're a coaching staff, if you already know you got some kids in the fold, you may want them to hold some of that excitement for Big Cat. So yeah, that's I think let's just see how things play out at the end of July. And then we'll see whether or not maybe we should be concerned or we can exhale. I think we'll be just fine. I think Auburn will have a really good class when all is said and done. With that, let's turn our attention to the QB race, to the QB recruitment. It was all good just a week ago, it seemed, Dylan. Auburn was still in the hunt for Juju Lewis, but last week they pivoted. It was announced that they began to pivot away from Juju. And I think this is another, from a recruiting standpoint, this is a coaching staff that has put us firmly in the hunt for some of the big time recruits. And I think that through no fault of them, because of NIL, Dylan, NIL is going to mean a lot in certain recruitments than others. Right?
Oh, absolutely.
If it's a big time recruit, NIL may play a huge factor. And if that kid knows he's a big time recruit, NIL plays a huge factor. And I think that was one of the factors that led to Auburn beginning to kind of pivot away, because Auburn needs a QB. They need to know going into fall camp, as they begin to turn their attention and focus on the season, they've got a QB in this class. We understand how important it is to have a QB already committed. We saw what it did for us last year when Walker White committed early in the year. They want to go ahead and get a QB on, and they just felt like they may need to turn their attention elsewhere, which leads us to two guys, Deuce Knight, who was mentioned earlier in the recruiting cycle as a possible target, and KJ Lacey, whose name has been mentioned early and often, the Texas commit, who has been listening to Auburn. Auburn's been in contact with him. And it's believed that KJ Lacey is kind of the guy. He's the leader in the clubhouse in terms of who this coaching staff is going after. What are your thoughts about these three targets, and how do you feel about who Auburn can possibly land? Because I'm a little nervous at this point, Dylan. So I want you to talk me off the ledge for a bit.
Well, I think it's a little too early to be on the edge, because I think Auburn's fairly confident in their guy that they're going to get, especially because you didn't want to spend the money on a transfer portal quarterback. I think Hugh Freeze's been very vocal about not wanting to spend money on a quarterback right now because he can spend money on quarterbacks in the future. But looking at these guys, KJ Lacey's kind of been the favorite that I think a lot of fans can agree with, especially because if you like to stalk likes on posts or whatever, KJ Lacey and his mom have also been liking Auburn posts. I believe Perry Thompson's TikTok was liked by KJ Lacey's mom. So I think there's just big time players want to play with other big time players, and that's what you kind of get with KJ Lacey. I mean, quarterback of Maryland, of course, everyone knows Ryan Williams from last year. Another could be an Auburn target this year, but since has changed his year and he's now a freshman at Alabama. But looking at his size, kind of fits the mold of an RPO system. He's going to be your dual threat guy. Deuce Knight also would fit a nice little mold as well. The Notre Dame commit. Again, I think Deuce Knight, I think we heard a lot more of him last year, and when the recruiting class was just starting to kind of get picked up a little bit. I know it was like Deuce Knight was up there. I remember George McIntyre kind of being in the fold a little bit, but I know he has like since closed off his recruiting strictly to Tennessee legacy as he is over there. But kind of just going into KJ Lacey, I think he just put on some weight. I think he's 170 pounds. That's kind of a little scary. It's like on the on a spectrum that's like far too light, as opposed to like the 340-pound lineman being far too heavy. Kind of just need to build some muscle, and I think KJ Lacey could turn into a very solid quarterback and develop well. Because are we still on the this is Walker White's team going into 2025?
Well, I think Julian Lewis's recruitment was interesting on a lot of levels, Dylan, because the idea would be that Julian would actually play a factor because of his skill set. He would play a factor in the QB race in 2025. I don't know if you can say the same thing about KJ Lacey going into 2025. So I think it could potentially makes things less interesting from my perspective, right? I think Julian was perceived to actually be a real threat. So yeah, I think all things being equal, if Juju was willing to flip to Auburn, I think that would have made things really interesting going into 2025, right? I don't know if that's the case with KJ Lacey, and I'd be curious to see what the coaching staff, how they handle next year with the guys, or even this upcoming season with guys, the backup QBs getting reps going into 2025 offseason and spring ball, how they handle that. Do they go after a portal QB or what? I don't know, but which I mean, I don't know if KJ factors as much as Juju would have.
Outside of the only real quarterback in this class I've been kind of keep my eye on as a generational level quarterback is Bryce Underwood. He's really the only one I've looked at. Like, this guy could start right away and be a X factor quarterback, but he's strictly LSU. I don't think Auburn really has a chance of flipping him. I don't think anybody has a chance of flipping him. He will be probably the next great LSU quarterback. But the rest of the class, I think they're just more developmental, which as a 4 or 5 star is kind of something you need to kind of lay back on, because not every freshman is going to come out of the gun just letting it fly and being at the top of the sport. And that's kind of what I saw. A lot of people kind of agree with that with Juju Lewis as well, because I think a lot of hype was put around his skill set and just what he is as a player and being hyped up. You know, USC is a quarterback factory. Lincoln Riley is a quarterback developer in every sense of the word. But kind of just going into, I think that the quarterback that you get this year would be a quarterback that you're looking forward to in 26 and 27. Right. Kind of developing into that. I don't think a quarterback in this recruiting class would be ready to start at a SEC program right away. And of course, with like going into like the Walker White conversation, he'll have a year and a half really to kind of get into that mold. And the coaching staff has already been very impressed with Walker White's turn as a freshman. Of course, at times he looked like a freshman in A-Day, but I don't think that's going to be an insult to anybody if you look like a freshman in A-Day.
Right.
But Juju's, I'm not going to be butthurt if he either stayed with USC or went to Indiana, which Indiana being in the mix was not on my 2024 bingo board whatsoever. But with the other two, I think Deuce Knight and KJ Lacey would probably be the two best options for Auburn to go for, especially with the fact that you're getting guys who are, I don't know, I was about to say right across state line, but Carrollton's right over the road as well. But just kind of getting a guy who you can look forward to, because I think the key factor to every great recruiting staff is getting a quarterback every year.
Absolutely.
That's what you see from every 5-star quarterback commits to Bama. There's one a year. You had Bryce Young, you had Ty Simpson, who was the guy. You had Julian Sayin this past year, but he has since transferred to Ohio State. But to really prove that you can recruit year in and year out, you have to bring in big time quarterbacks who can be patient enough to be developed. And of course, you're not going to keep everybody, but that's just something you got to live with.
Sure. Sure. I agree. And then that's what a lot of the programs, again, if you're having success at the QB spot, those guys are going to be more willing to wait their turn, right? Obviously, you will lose some guys. Again, transfer portal. The name of the game is difficult to stockpile guys at that position. But again, if you're bringing in a QB year after year after year, you have enough people in the room, even with attrition, to be able to have a very competitive room, and those guys can push one another as well. It'll be interesting to see, because the reason why I'm concerned, Dylan, is just that when I look at a KJ Lacey, I'm looking at someone who has been committed to Texas for quite some time. And Sark is no slouch when it comes to being a play caller and having success with QBs as well. So again, it'll be one thing if this kid was committed to a school where the head coach was a defensive minded guy, right? Sark has done works and wonders with QBs as well. And so getting him to listen, I mean, obviously Auburn has been in communications with him, even while and let's talk about this. One of the things that does give me some hope, Dylan, in terms of being able to flip a QB at this point, because obviously the timetable has been moved up with these guys. Some of these guys are looking to shut down their recruitment before the season starts, and it's tough to get them to really consider another school at this stage of the game. But what I'm impressed with this coaching staff is, unlike prior coaching staffs, I don't think this coaching staff, they have their priorities, but they don't put all their eggs in one basket. Right? They're in constant communication with all of these targets. So it's easy for this coaching staff to pivot off of a Juju to one of these other guys. Again, they still have their work cut out for them in the regard that they still got to flip this guy. But I like the fact that it's not like how it was with Gus, where if we missed on a target, we're going from a potential 5-star to some 3-star that we didn't even know about. Right? You maybe just like, we really have to shift the board. I don't think that's the case.
There was a 3-star that a lot of Auburn fans probably would have loved to have gotten in Lamar Jackson.
Goodness gracious, yeah.
But I think looking at the 3 quarterbacks, I mean, it's an easy sell, because I think playing time can play a factor better for Auburn because of the fact, I mean, if you look at Deuce Knight, he's committed to Notre Dame. Notre Dame's quarterback, Duke's quarterback last year, I can't remember his name top of my head, but I believe he's a junior. So it's like you're only going to be back there for a year. If you look at Juju in SoCal, Miller Moss, I don't know how long he's going to be the starter there, but I think he is the projected starter right now. And I mean, you bring in another talented quarterback like that, there you go. There's your starting quarterback right there in Juju Lewis. If you look at KJ Lacey and the guy who's in front of him, I mean, Quinn Ewers has another year of eligibility after this year, but
he's Manning
league bound. Then you have Arch Manning, who per EA College Football 2025, he's an 87 overall quarterback as a backup. Words on that. But yeah, you have more time to sit the bench at Texas than you would at Auburn. Of course, if you go into Auburn after this year, you're going right in the midst of a quarterback battle, meaning you better get your butt in school and graduate early so you can go ahead and enroll early and get the spring to compete with Walker White. I believe Holden Gardner might still be a foot out the door. So really just Walker White, KJ Lacey, and potentially a transfer portal quarterback just to fill out a hole in the quarterback room. And of course, Hank Brown as well, also in that mix. So as opposed to, already put in place starters, you have a chance to get into the Auburn mix right away and start right away.
Yeah.
Because these other guys have already been sold on, you're our guy. After, like, even with Juju in Colorado, I think a lot of people believe that Shador is going to the draft after this season. And, I mean, right there, if Juju flips to Colorado, Deion's got his next quarterback right there. Ready to go as soon as his son goes to the draft.
Right.
But with KJ Lacey and Auburn, you got a chance. Your freshman year.
Yeah. Yeah. Who does Dylan like of the three? I think each of these QBs have their pros and cons, right? And so I don't want I don't want to make it sound like I'm just sour on Juju because Auburn pivoted from him. He's a good QB. He has his pros. The con I would be nervous about, Dylan, is that Juju he's mobile, but he's not. I don't think he's an RPO quarterback. And that gives me pause for concern because, and again, I'm not saying these QBs are the same. I'm not making the comparison. But I look at the learning curve that it took for Holden Geriner, right? Learning a new system and how that hindered his ability to compete for the job, right?
Mm-hmm.
With Juju coming in, learning the speed of the game while learning to be an RPO QB, or unless Hugh Freeze and company tailor the offense to fit Juju's strengths, that could happen as well. I don't know, but that would give me cause for concern. KJ Lacey, to me, is a really good fit for your RPO system, but he's undersized right now, right? Like there's pros and cons with each of these guys. Who are you more excited about? Who would you be more excited about if Auburn lands this guy?
So again, like you said, I think a lot of pros and cons go into this factor. KJ is, I think, going to be my favorite outside of his main con being his size. But RPO is what he ran in high school. And he can push the tempo probably better than the three guys we're talking about. Deuce Knight, I mean, his biggest pro is his size. You cannot ever be mad about a 6'5" quarterback, no matter what. And my issue with Deuce Knight isn't the fact. I write left-handed. I do a lot of things left-handed, but when I throw a football, I throw right-handed because it's easier to throw. It's easier to teach right-handed quarterbacks.
So are you a lefty? Are you a true lefty?
I'm academically left-handed. I'm athletically right-handed. That's how I look at it. But the athleticism that you get from Deuce Knight is another huge factor. I think if I had to rank him in terms of who I'm be most excited for to least excited for, it would probably have to be KJ Lacey, Deuce Knight, and Juju, because I think that you go from most ready for the system to least ready for the system. And when you get that kind of athleticism in the first two, I mean, you can't go wrong with that. RPO is built for those athletically gifted quarterbacks. The best of the best of the best RPO quarterbacks are always the ones you're like, oh, he's an athletic freak. Yeah. And I think the best person to look at for that is probably Nick Marshall, one of them, who ran the RPO very well at Auburn.
For sure.
And then I would never see Hugh Freeze kind of go for a pure passer at a quarterback, which I think is where you kind of get with Juju Lewis. He's closer to the pure passer, and the can extend plays. Kind of, I don't want to compare him to Patrick Mahomes, but Patrick Mahomes is the best magician in football at doing that. But he kind of would play action, breaks down. He won't run forward. He'll run out looking for the pass down the field, which you can't go wrong with that. But that's kind of why Holden Geriner probably is 1 foot out the door, because I don't think he was ever going to work out with a Hugh Freeze system because of the fact that he isn't mobile. I mean, Peyton Thorne works because Peyton Thorne can run. We've seen Peyton Thorne run all over the field before.
Sure. And he's willing to run.
Willing to run too. I mean, he had 300, 400 yards last year. Second on the team in rushing touchdowns. Third on the team, I think, right behind Robbie Ashford. But I see it that way. You want to find the athletically gifted quarterbacks, almost tight ends, quarterbacks who you can develop into the P part of the RPO. It's like at first we want you to run first, but then now you start getting the ball down the field. The intermediate passing game gets started right there. The deep ball gets developed right there, because that's kind of the quarterbacks that you expect from Hugh Freeze. And I mean, KJ Lacey, he puts on 20 pounds. I mean, we've seen Cam Coleman. He did that in an off season. He put on like 20 pounds of muscle, and he was ready to go. Because that was like the huge, big thing that people were worried about was if he gets hit, is he going to be able to get back up? Sure. You're going to get that with KJ Lacey. He's going to have another year at Saraland, which is one of the top end high schools in Alabama. He's going to be there in the postseason with them, and he's going to get hit all over Decatur and back. So KJ Lacey is probably going to be top of my board.
He's the top of your board. Okay. Yeah. Obviously that's who this coaching staff is leaning in on at this point. How good do you feel? Like, obviously, we're not recruiting experts. We don't talk to these kids, so we're not making a prediction. But how are you feeling about where all this coaching staff is as it pertains to KJ Lacey?
I think that they're confident because I think that, I mean, we're not recruiting experts, but we understand the fact that wide receivers want to know who's going to be throwing them the ball. So I think that a lot of wide receivers are waiting on who Auburn will pick up. I mean, I don't know how close KJ Lacey was to some of the Texas commits, but you can probably assume that he probably talks to them every day. I think that you're looking at confidence in, if you get KJ Lacey, you start getting wide receivers. But honestly, if you get any of these guys, I think you start getting wide receivers. I think it was like the same thing with Walker White. I think as soon as Walker White committed to Auburn, that's when we were like, oh, well, here come the wide receivers. And like, I think that's when Malcolm Simmons and Bryce Cain and everybody started filing in. Actually, I think Malcolm Simmons and Bryce Cain were already committed, and then it came in Perry Thompson and Cam Coleman. I mean, correct myself.
Malcolm committed. He committed Big Cat Weekend too. He actually committed. It may have been right after Perry Thompson committed. Actually, Bryce Cain might have already been committed.
I think Bryce Cain was committed, and then Perry Thompson
Cain was already committed.
Yeah. So Walker White committed before both of those kids did, and then there you go with those two coming in. But with KJ Lacey, I think you're very confident in flipping him because of the fact that you got Arch Manning right in front of you, and I don't think that a soul in the Texas coaching staff wants to feel the wrath of the Texas fan base if Arch Manning does not take that first snap in 2026 or 2025, because at that point he'll be a sophomore going to that year. I don't know if he redshirted this year or not.
Let me ask you this. Is that a similar thing that what could happen in Auburn if Walker White takes the job and actually is the guy? Can a similar thing happen there as well?
I think so. Because of the fact that if you commit to Auburn, you're immediately in contact with Perry Thompson and Cam Coleman and the rest of the Freeze Four, who again have all they just did a TikTok with Walker White yesterday. I think as soon as the wins start piling in, if Auburn goes right now, I have them at 8-4. Auburn goes 8-4. You've probably seen a little bit of Walker White in those games, and you've seen a lot of the wide receivers. Going to get Cam Coleman, most likely will lead Auburn in some kind of statistical category, receiving wise. Once you kind of see the idea of Hugh Freeze offense at Auburn kind of picking up a lot of pace, a lot of steam in the right direction. And you get your quarterback during Big Cat. Say KJ Lacey commits, then you kind of see where the offense looks like, and you kind of see where KJ Lacey looks like at Saraland. Then you kind of see the mold kind of fitting in, and then you see what Walker White did when he was in high school. You start to catch on to, oh, well, maybe this isn't the Auburn that I'm used to seeing from 2 years ago. And that's kind of where the confidence is going to start to come in. And again, as soon as Auburn gets a quarterback in this class, wide receivers will pile in no matter what. And not if it's Deuce Knight, if it's Juju, if it's just random quarterbacks, number 5, just go instantly 14 on them. They'll file in, and that's kind of the kicker is you have to win. The biggest NIL is one huge part of recruiting, but as is winning. And I think once KJ Lacey commits, I don't want to say it like that. If KJ Lacey commits and flips, you'll get the wide receivers, and then you'll get to keep the wide receivers if Auburn goes into this season ready to win.
And I'm curious because, again, you had receivers who were on the board who've recently come off. Guys like Caleb Cunningham, guys like Derek Smith, who was down the street at Selma. Do you think Auburn is back in it for some of these guys, or what new receivers comes with KJ that you can think of? Like, how does that? Obviously, yes, you got a QB on board. Wide receiver recruiting looks more promising, but who's left out there?
Well, I don't think you can ever take anybody's name off the list when it comes to Hugh Freeze. I mean, we all assumed Cam Coleman was going to A&M fully. DeMarcus Riddick, linebacker, we thought he was going to Alabama or Georgia. Just a lot of these names, I don't think you can really kick anybody off. I can't think of any names top of my head that's not already committed somewhere that I'm expecting Auburn to pick up anytime. But I you can't go wrong with thinking that maybe a couple of these guys are going to be flipped from whatever SEC team it may be back to Auburn or to Auburn. But there's a lot of big time players in this recruiting class that I'm still very excited to see. When we mentioned Blake Woodby and Quan Fegan, someone's got confused with his brother, and of course like running backs like Usman Chroma as well. You expect a lot of those names coming in, and a lot of confidence building from both the coaching staff and the players being recruited. Alvin Henderson has already said that he thinks Auburn's going to be a top 5 in recruiting this year.
We will definitely see. And I think as it pertains to, I agree with you. I think KJ, I like Deuce Knight as well, but I agree with you that those two quarterbacks I think are a overall better fit for the offense that Hugh Freeze wants to run. Not the Hugh Freeze that not the offense that Hugh Freeze has to put together to get through a season, but the offense he wants to run. I'm holding out on my thoughts in terms of whether or not this coaching staff can get a KJ Lacey. What I'm looking forward to is when Big Cat Weekend comes and goes, will KJ Lacey have visited? Is he firmly in Auburn Big Cat Weekend? How well does that go? That will let me know that this is probably going to be a recruitment that goes down to the wire. Hopefully Auburn doesn't drive up the price for this QB because, I mean, it's Texas. They're willing to compete and hang on to this recruit because they've had him in the fold for a long time. But Big Cat Weekend is going to tell me, okay, I think KJ may be the guy, and I think we're in a dogfight. And I think Hugh Freeze is used to dogfights. He's not afraid of him. He's I think we're fine there. But I think that's going to tell me a lot about whether or not this coaching staff really has a strong chance to flip this kid. We will see in a few weeks. We definitely want to hear from y'all and your thoughts on this. Before we pivot and switch to a different topic, we hope you're enjoying what you're hearing so far. Please be sure to share this video, smash that like button, and please subscribe if you are new to the channel. We're going to stop, pay some bills real quick, and come back and discuss media days.
This edition of the War Report is brought to you by our generous sponsors. The Opelika Rage Room in Opelika, Alabama. The Rage Room is a place where anger and stress find their ultimate release. Call or text 334-777-6688 to set up a session today, or check them out online at opelikaRageroom.com. Golden's Cast Iron. Whether you work out, grill out, or chill out, you deserve the best life possible, and Golden's Cast Iron is here to provide the tools to help you do it. Check them out at goldenscastiron.com.
Want to say a special thank you to our sponsors. I personally believe that we have some of the best sponsors and partners in the world. And yes, I am extremely biased because of that, but it's true. They are amazing, and we want to say thank you to them. We want to thank you guys also for being part of the Green Name Gang. $5.99 a month is all it takes for you to be a part of that exclusive group of extraordinary gentlemen and ladies. We have some dope content that we've been putting on for you guys behind the paywall throughout the off season. Ike has something called Office Hours, where you want to jump in and you don't have to talk about Auburn football per se, just whatever's on your mind. Ike is there to answer your questions, chop it up with y'all, have a good time and a good conversation. That's a part of the perks there. Ike also, as he's been known to do, break down film. He's already done that with some of the guys we've picked up out of the transfer portal, DJ Durkin's defense. So if you want to get an idea of what to expect schematically on the defensive side of the ball in 2024, $5.99 a month, y'all. Get yourself a green name, and I can fill you in on that. Also, too, we will be giving away tickets to Auburn home games in 2024, like we've done the past few years, but that's for our members. So definitely there's some amazing perks with being a War Report member. $5.99 a month to get you there. We've started the initiative and pushed people to give the gift of a green name. Special shout out to Chris for actually gifting 5 War Report memberships. We need 15 more. Help us out. All right, give us the HBO special and help a brother out. give the gift of a War Report membership. We would gladly appreciate it. And we definitely want to take time to shout out our sponsor, JOYMODE. JOYMODE Sexual Performance Booster is an all-natural, science-backed solution help to increase blood flow, firmness, stamina, and performance. In other words, JOYMODE is going to give you the extreme confidence as well as the ability to deliver on that confidence with you and your lady. All right? You and that special someone. Use 20% off. To get 20% off, go to usejoymode.com and get 20% off with code REPORT at checkout. Definitely want to shout out JOYMODE. Thank you for being our sponsor. Let's get back into it. Let's grab some of your guys' comments. You have been commenting already. TJ Powell, welcome to the War Report family. Ant, he says, I like Deuce, but KJ will be a better fit in my opinion. Y'all calm down. No need to be hostile towards people who don't know. Thank you, Ant, for being the voice of reason and calming those in the chat. You're doing God's work. God bless you. I'm glad you're hanging out with us today. Philip Coleman says, if we get Lacey, we will get the wide receivers to come. He agrees with you, Dylan. And I do think KJ Lacey, because he has been a highly sought after recruit, can be that person. One of the reasons why Ant Robinson likes KJ, he says he is another Russell Wilson, and we know how he turned out. Not bad. Not bad. Just
give him the offensive line. You can get in there with Russell Wilson. Isn't that
100? Absolutely right. Absolutely. That's the very reason why we didn't get him. Greg Wheatley says, is B Will going to be back when the season starts? Nobody hates on other teams better than B Will. You will see B Will around here a little bit more when the season starts. I think some things are going to open up for him schedule-wise, and he will be able to be seen. And, yes, we will bring back the hatred of other teams. I'm curious. Well, actually, I'm not curious. I know exactly who B Will hates. I'm thinking of USC. I'm thinking of Ohio State. There's a few other coaches out there that B Will hates on. Jimbo's gone, so we're not going to get the Jimbo hate this year, but there's plenty of people out there that B Will's going to hate on. Daniel Moultrie says, when can we expect Boss Loss? I think Toss, C-Dub, probably really close to the season. When we do our preview of the season, it's usually a week or so right before the season starts. So keep it locked, Daniel. We definitely will do that. It'll be our third iteration of that for this year. So thanks for that question. We will be doing that again much closer to the season. All right. So Dylan, let's talk about, while you're here as a guest with us on the weekend tailgate, Ike and Mike are in Dallas preparing for what will be a wild SEC Media Days out in Dallas, welcoming in newcomers Oklahoma and the Texas Longhorns. It was announced last week who will be joining Hugh Freeze out in Dallas to represent Auburn. Keldrick Falk, who was a surprise. Not so much a surprise, Eugene Asante. And, of course, Peyton Thorne, PT, will be joining Hugh Freeze. Were you shocked by any of the selections?
I was a little bit surprised by Keldrick Falk, but I kind of remembered last year when Elijah McAllister got picked, and just after just being at Auburn for like 3 or 4 months at that point. I'm not surprised. I think Keldrick Falk has earned his spot on the defense. I was a little surprised that it wasn't Jalen McLeod out of the two. I think you've got a more veteran player out of the two. I guess they've been at Auburn for the same length of time. But I know a lot of Auburn fans were upset about one selection on this list being Peyton Thorne, because I think it kind of solidifies the fact that he is going to be the quarterback. Sure. Even though, Hugh Freeze has said it, we've all said it, everyone has been saying it. Keldrick Falk's probably the biggest surprise, and I've kind of come to terms that maybe it wasn't that much of a surprise after all.
It was a surprise to me because as we begin to toss out names, it didn't surprise me that they sent 2 defensive players, right? First and foremost, right? I wasn't surprised at that, given who we had coming back. But I thought of Jason Jones as a guy who could absolutely be one of the 3 selected. Keontae Scott, if you go to a secondary and pick a guy who personally I think very high. Jason Jones as well. I think very well spoken guy, very he represents Auburn well. Keontae as well. Obviously we're biased. We've had Keontae on the show, and it's been a joy talking with him. But to see a young player who also is on the culture council for Auburn football in Keldrick Falk, I think it speaks to this guy's ceiling, not only in terms of his ability as an athlete and a player on the field, but a voice in the locker room, right? And I think it also speaks to the fact that when you're talking about culture and establishing the culture, it seems to me that Hugh Freeze has identified, obviously there's several other guys who fit the billing here as well, but Keldrick is one of those guys that Hugh Freeze is looking to really shift the culture in a way that Hugh Freeze believes Auburn needs to have and go. But your thoughts on that?
Yeah, because you look as a recruiting standpoint, you're going to get those kind of questions, and Keldrick Falk, kind of the first big flip of the Hugh Freeze era here at Auburn. And because you flipped him from Florida State, everyone thought he was a surefire Seminole at this point last year or 2 years ago. But you're going to get those questions. You're going to get the questions and it helps answer those, because I think Hugh Freeze doesn't want to be bombarded with all the recruiting questions. I know he is going to be. But Keldrick was the first big flip from class 2023. He was one of the first out of that class to earn a starting spot. Sadly, it was due to an injury, but he got in and made the most of it. Him, Kyan Lee, and Connor Liu are kind of those standouts from that class 2023. So if you're looking at a way to get more of the recruits out there that Auburn has been that went crazy for, you got those 3. And Keldrick Falk, was a standout last year. And I think Connor Liu, in that sense, is going to be known as probably one of the best centers to ever come through Auburn. I don't think you've ever seen a center step in right away as a true freshman and look. I think he graded better than all of the other starters on the offensive line, who were all 4th or 5th year seniors at that point. But the team is getting behind the defensive line, and of course the 2 edge rushers and him and Jalen McLeod are the focal point of that D line. And I know Jason Jones has been with the team for a while now. I think that the key factor with him is the fact I think that Hugh Freeze was the transfer portal trying to move back Jason Jones. I know he did a lot of great things as a nose guard, filling up gaps, but last year the interior defensive line didn't really do much in terms of getting the quarterback. You had Marcus Harris, but after Marcus Harris, Justin Rogers and Jason Jones both were really just there to fill up gaps and stop the run. And sometimes that didn't really work out like they wanted to. But then you got Philip Bleedy coming in, Terrell Carter, Gage Keys all coming in, kind of mixing up the D-line. So, but you have surefire starters on the defensive line on Jalen McLeod and Keldrick Falk. And they're going to be talking about the defense all season long. Everyone's aware that the defense is going to be the best part of this team. And you just got to find different levels to talk about it. And I was a little surprised that Keontae Scott probably wasn't one of the 3. I thought that he should have been. But again, I'm not going to be upset with Keldrick Falk getting in the limelight a little bit more.
And I'm curious to see. I'm curious to see all 3 for different reasons. I think Eugene Asante will be the most entertaining because Eugene Asante just has a very entertaining I'm curious to see him. Keldrick also, I'm curious to see him demonstrate. It's one of those things that when you hear someone talk, you understand why they were selected, right? So I'm curious to see how Keldrick Falk does when he meets with media. But the biggest one that I'm interested in is Peyton Thorne. And Hugh Freeze has been pretty vocal about his leadership this year, right? One of the first things that he mentioned coming before the start of spring ball was he talked about how Peyton Thorne has really become a leader in the locker room. And I'm curious to see how he handles the questions, how he addresses the media. I'm curious to see how he does in this state. Is he in a good space? That's one of the things that I'm looking to is he in a good space? And I think he is, because there are a lot of things around Peyton Thorne that, in my personal opinion, has improved. The synergy with the coaching staff, understanding what's expected of them. Wide receivers have been upgraded. So I expect to see Peyton Thorne in a really good mental space. I'm curious to see that being reflected in his responses and how he talks about the upcoming season. But your thoughts, Dylan?
Yeah, I think you're going to see a lot of questions thrown at Peyton Thorne. He might be, out of the three, I think he's going to have the most questions asked of him. You're going into a year where everyone from Athlon to Lindy's to ESPN to CBS has ranked Peyton Thorne, if not the 16th, 15, 14, or 13th best quarterback in the SEC out of the 16, of course. And you're going into a year where you have a much improved offensive line and way better wide receiver core. But he's going to be asked a lot of hard questions, and you're going to see the mentality and see how much it's improved from Peyton Thorne. I think there's been more people getting on the Peyton Thorne hype train than there was last year or towards the end of last year. Because I think his persona's also changed a lot. You saw it a little bit whenever Auburn started having a bit of a hot streak last year. I know a lot of people were really hyped up with the fact that he went to Talladega this past time when the race was there. There's a confidence building around Peyton Thorne. And I think the fans are starting to understand that, at least a percentage of them are. And if Hugh Freeze is picking him to go in and represent Auburn, I think that's going to be a huge factor into where he is mentally going to the season. We know what he can do. We've seen it before at Michigan State. We've seen the highs of Peyton Thorne from last year, but we've also seen the very lows. It's up to Peyton Thorne to really prove to the media that he's not gonna. That season from last year was a fluke. That's not the Peyton Thorne to expect. He was not there mentally because he got there late. He was splitting time for half the season with Robbie Ashford. He always was afraid that his job was going to get taken out from behind him. Going to this year, he's been told ever since the Maryland game, this is your job going into next year. You're the starting quarterback. Went to the spring, you're the starting quarterback. Ended A-Day, starting quarterback. Going into the fall, starting quarterback. He understands this now, that this is his team, and he has to represent it the best way he can. He has a more talented team. Excuses are not going to fly by anymore. He's now I don't know if he's a fourth year or fifth year senior, one of the two, fifth year. So you're going to see a lot. You're going to see more of a swaggy approach to Peyton Thorne going into this year. Because I think a lot of people, one of the nicknames I've seen people throwing around at him are Vanilla Vic, because they're just trying to get in with the memes of getting the culture around Peyton Thorne. Especially, he won't have to get bullied as much by defensive lines this year.
Do you think because this is another possibility? Does he demonstrates a bit of a chip on his shoulder? Yes. Because of some of the things that you've mentioned, right?
I think that's what they're going to try to find. They're going to try to push that chip even more than they have. I mean, I don't think any of the media should be afraid to kind of go at him a little bit. I mean, they've been going at him all offseason long. I don't think there's been a single person outside of the Auburn sphere that has ranked Peyton Thorne higher than 10 and ranking quarterbacks in the SEC. I mean, I think I have him as 10 or 9 at myself. So I just think the SEC is just loaded. But you don't get any positives listed about Peyton Thorne from media. You kind of get, oh, well, he sucked last year, so he's going to suck this year. Peyton Thorne is going to be there, and he's going to – those questions, they should get asked. I think that – I mean, it would be kind of rude to ask those questions, but if you're going to talk about him like that, kind of bring it up to him. Like, what do you think about this hate? What do you think about this? What are you going to the season with? What do you think do you think that you're going to be much improved? Do you expect the same year last year kind of questions? And it's up to Peyton Thorne again. He's got that chip on his shoulder. Everyone knows that he does. Again, he's not. He knows his job, but if it last year's anything, if it still kind of weighs in on him a little bit, he's still worried that, I heard all season long that Walker White's the quarterback of the future. I have to make sure that his future doesn't start in 2024. Holden Gurn's got to fill out the door. I got to make sure that he doesn't close it before he walks out. He still has that mentality. Probably not as vocal as it was last year, but again, he just has to really, really show that it's not weighing in on him like it was in 2023. Yeah. And you don't get the same Peyton Thorne that you did.
Yeah. Again, like Keldrick Falk, I'm curious to see. Hugh Freeze has been complimentary of him as a leader. I want to see that. Obviously, we have concerns about Peyton Thorne, the quarterback, right? We will see that in the fall. We will see him address those things when he touched the field. But from a leadership standpoint, which is some of the things that Hugh Freeze talked about, I actually want to see how he represents himself, how he represents the football team at media days, and how he answers and handles some of those tough questions. I'm hopefully he's been introspective and reflective of himself and can talk about what people can expect from him this year. Now, again, he has to go out and deliver and prove that, but I'm curious to see him, how he handles himself. If he's very businesslike, how does he handle it? So that'll be one thing. I think Hugh Freeze will be very similar to how he was last year, very businesslike, got in, got out without any type of hot takes, anything crazy that he said or whatever. So I think that'll be more of the same. But I'm curious to see and watch how the three guys who were chosen, how they do and how they handle themselves. So we will definitely be on the lookout for that. Mike and I will be doing a lot of coverage this week, talking about that, interviews and so on and so forth. So you definitely want to keep it locked there. All right.
I will say,
go ahead, Dylan.
There's actually 3 sophomores going to media days this year.
Really?
Oklahoma's bringing Jackson Arnold, who's going to be a true sophomore, and Texas A&M is bringing Torian York, their linebacker. So
okay. All right, so he won't be the only sophomore. I think he's the first sophomore that I know that Auburn has ever took to media days. I don't think Auburn has taken anyone that young to media days. So it'll be interesting to see for sure. But we'll keep you posted on media day coverage throughout the week. Guys, do us a favor. Get a green name. Get yourself a green name. $5.99 a month will get you there, and you'll get some exclusive, some amazing perks. I've already mentioned some already throughout the show. Ike's has office hours. He does film review, and we do each season, we're sending a one of our patrons, one of our members, to the game with a guest each home game. So we'll do a drawing, and we announce that on our shows as to who are the winners. And you guys have done a great job of taking pictures and photos, and just really appreciative for that. And those are the things we love to see. $5.99 a month to get you there. You can also give the gift of a War Report membership. We got 10 today, didn't quite reach the 20 that we were looking for, but we appreciate you guys for participating and gifting War Report memberships. We gladly appreciate it. Also, want to shout out a few sponsors of the War Report: Rogue Shop. Use code RAPPORT to get discounts, to get your gummies, to get all of your goods from the Rogue Shop. They've been a long-term supporter of the War Report. Also, JOYMODE. JOYMODE is one of our newest sponsors. It's a sexual performance booster, but it also helps you as it pertains to your cardiovascular system, and it helps it to pump blood more seamlessly and effectively in areas of your body that need it, whether doing workouts, sexual activity, or your regular daily exertion. You go to usejoymode.com and get 20% off with code RAPPORT at checkout. That's 20% off and free shipping with code RAPPORT at usejoymode.com. Guys, your special someone will gladly appreciate it. So head over there and get your stuff over there. All right. We got a network, the War Report Network. One of those amazing channels is the College Loop, featuring Dylan, who's been our guest today. Appreciate you, Dylan, for hanging out with us today. But you also have the Up-Tempo podcast, as usual, the Auburn Express, and Just a Sec. As we're getting close to the season, Ike is going to start cooking up some stuff over there as he joins other friends from around the SEC to talk the state of the union or state of the SEC and what's going on there. So definitely check out some of our other content creators on the War Report Network, and we appreciate you. We also appreciate if you shared this video and add us while you're sharing this video, whether it's in message boards, in your group chats, wherever. Share this video, smash that like button. Please subscribe if you're new to the channel. Also, you can find us on social media. That is Twitter, or formerly known as Twitter, X, and IG. We're also on TikTok at TW Rapport. And that's it. But we got some great content coming for you guys later this week. Ike and Mike are going to be working tirelessly to bring you some great and dope content. Keep it locked here at the War Report. Until then, enjoy the rest of your weekend. And as always, War Eagle.